Good day, doodlers. Welcome to Draw Cartoons. We the People, the event going on in Fortnite, is today, so don't miss out. By the way, the Draw Cartoons Discord channel is alive with awesome art progress, and I want to toss a bit of a shout out to Enzo RBLX, who drew this beautifully framed cartoon. Really nice colour choices there, Enzo. It's looking pretty vibrant. Also, Monkey Killer Boy drew this killer Superman drawing, and it inspired me to give that sweet new Aquaman Fortnite model a go for today's tutorial. This video is going to be really helpful for you with posing, faces and drawing hair, so if you have trouble doing any of that stuff, understandably because it's all pretty tough, this is the video you need to see. Don't skip around the video, you're going to want to watch all of it because it's just so helpful all the way through, and hit that like button if you're excited for We the People, and subscribe to this channel to keep up with my easy peasy tutorials. Let's go! So we're going to go for some pretty short proportions on this one, kind of like I guess like a chibi style, well they're not quite, it's more like a car bobblehead more than anything else if you ask me. Because I find it's quite a nice way of drawing things every now and again. I think it's a good way to practice. It's a way to kind of draw anatomy, get anatomical practice in without having to kind of go full hog and draw the entire picture. You can just kind of do it miniature mode and just kind of go for it in a smaller shape, and it's done a bit faster, and it's just like I said, it's a very rapid way to practice. So all I'm doing here is I'm drawing out a nice big head. It's got this kind of shape to it where it's not quite an oval, but it's not quite a box. It's something in between, and you basically want to have it rounded at the top and a little bit rounded on the lower jaw and nice and flat at the sides, pardon me, like this. And then when you've done that, you want to draw this kind of cross in the center to get your symmetry in there. It helps you plan out the shape of the face, which we'll come to once we finish drawing the shape of the character. So I'm going to have one arm coming out like this, with a hand going here, and I'm going to have another arm folded, well not quite folded, but kind of resting on his hip. So I'm going to draw an elbow out here, and I'm going to draw a little hand kind of resting the back of the hand against where his hip's going to be. This hand is going to be clasping his trademark trident. So now we're just going to kind of finish off by drawing two lines down for the legs, going to have them slightly apart, and a couple of triangles at the end. And then now that we've got those in, we can just kind of very faintly block out the overall shape of the legs. There we go. So that's the great thing about these kind of bobblehead shapes, is that it's a great way to practice drawing faces, getting a complete drawing. You can practice posing, and you can practice torso anatomy. Legs you don't have to worry about too much in these drawings, as we're going to see when we actually get ahead to finishing it. So I think a great place to start is indeed the face. So I like to draw the nose first because it's smack bang in the middle of the face and everything can kind of be drawn out from the nose. So just going to draw this kind of shape here. If at any point, by the way, I go too quickly, I'm used to drawing at a certain speed, but you guys have full control over the video. You can like rewind it, you can slow it down, go back, go forward, so you can kind of watch it at your own pace. I'm just going to kind of go ahead and draw at the pace that I am used to, just because I feel like it's the best way to instruct. So I'm going to do this big kind of very masculine looking smile here. You'll see it's got angles that aren't always there. If I demonstrate over here, I could have drawn the mouth like this. More of a D, right? More of a kind of like downward facing D. And that's okay, but it doesn't quite look as masculine as this. And we're going for this very kind of thick jawline on this character, because that's very much what Aquaman is in the DC movies, and certainly in Fortnite. So we're going to go for this kind of angular shape. It's still kind of a D shape, but we've got these kind of corners going on. Just going to add a little line here and a line here so we know it's teeth. And now for the beard. The beard's really fun. You can kind of start at the edge of the nose, give it a bit of fluff as you work your way around to the side of the face, and obviously you need to do that on both sides as well. And then you can just kind of like fluff it out along the jaw as well. You can make it as long as you want really, but if we're going to stick with Aquaman here, we're just going to make it a little bit outside of the face and not much further than that. Now for the eyes, because we've got the nose in place, we're obviously going to draw an eye either side. So I'm going to give them a bit of a very cocksure kind of look here. So I'm going to draw a curve up and over for the tops of the eyes, but then this line along the bottom of the eye, And that line is there because he's smiling. If you smile in a mirror, you'll see your cheeks get pushed upwards like this, and it causes a small bunching up of your face just underneath your eyes. That's what these lines are. Okay, I'm gonna have him gonna have him looking over here. A couple of pupils just inside like that. Pupils generally on cartoons look better when they're at the side of the eye, just because it just kind of works better. If you draw the pupil smack bang in the middle of the eye, it can be very hard to get that right. So we're just going to take a slightly easy route there and draw them at an extreme angle on each eye. Just a couple of eyebrows. I've made them very thick at one side and then quite narrow on the inside. And this eyebrow is a little bit lower, so I'm going to add a small crinkle just on top of his nose here, because again, if you were to do that in a mirror, you'd get a small fold here on your face where your eyebrow is lower, and this one wouldn't really cause one, maybe like a slight bit up here, but we don't need to overdo it with the wrinkles. And now for the hair, so I'm going to draw his hairline first, which is going to be up here. Okay, and then we get to have a bit of fun drawing long hair. I have done a tutorial on how to draw long hair, which I will link up there, hopefully around this part of the video. But for now, we're just going to kind of wing it like this. We're going to add a tiny bit of thickness to the outside of his head like this, just a little bit, very lightly sketching that in, and then we get to have a bit of fun by framing the face. So we can come down here, draw a little loose hair kind of down like that, and then just wave it down the side of the head. Doesn't matter if you're overlapping parts of the beard or things you've already drawn. If anything, that's good. That means you're drawing the hair so it looks nice and natural. So the hair's going to come all the way down to his shoulders, so we need to draw some here as well, and give it a few flicks, curls, spikes, whatever you want. Just kind of really play around with it, give it lots of swoosh, because his hair is very long. Aquaman's hair is really, really long. Who knows if we'll ever see that actor playing a character with short hair, because he always seems to play long-haired characters, but it definitely works. So okay, we'll add a few bits of hair up here, just kind of show the direction of the hair, a bit of texture along the top like this. Okay, so when it comes to drawing hair, lots of overlapping, lots of hair just kind of dangling down freely, swooping around in kind of different directions. Give it lots of wave, because his hair is very wavy. If you want, you can draw it a bit further out than this. You can have it like that, make it look a bit longer. As a matter of fact, that actually looks better, so I'm going to keep mine like that. But you can definitely overdo it. You know, you can have the hair out here, and it begins to look a bit more like an afro. So you probably don't want to go quite that far, because Aquaman doesn't usually have an afro. So we're pretty much done with the face at this point. If you want to get really nitpicky, we can get a bit under the beard here, because he's got a slight kind of gap under his lip there, and a small patch of hair there. If you want to be really perfect about it, you can kind of do that, and then be careful when you ink that, make sure you get that kind of drawn in nice and thin with your lines. But otherwise, the face is pretty much done, so we can move on to the torso. So this is what I mean about it being like a really quick crash course in drawing anatomy. We can draw two kind of big pectoral muscles like this, right along his chest. So they go up in the middle, and they have this kind of blocky downward cartoony shape as they go towards each kind of quadrant of the chest, and then they go back up at the end towards the arms. So almost like a U shape, but it's got a bit more angle to the U. And then underneath that, we want to draw his 6-pack, or rather it's more like an 8-pack on this guy. So we'll start by drawing the outside of it, like this. Give it a slight angle, because it looks pretty good on a cartoon kind of shape. And then we'll draw 1, 2, and 3 lines across, and give them a bit of a dip upwards in the middle. Okay, and also as you reach the lines that you just drew like that, so you get these kind of W shapes as you go along. Now, his waist is looking a bit thin compared to his hips, so we'll just thicken this out. That's the beauty of drawing with a pencil. You can just kind of mend things as you go. Before, his figure was looking slightly feminine when he had this kind of tucked in a bit too much, but we thickened it out and he's back to looking like a big kind of muscular, masculine kind of Aquaman going on. So now we'll draw the belt underneath. The belt's just kind of, it's more of these U shapes. Got this kind of U shape going on here, but it's an upside down U shape. And then a belt that goes either side of his body, goes all the way around his body like this. Draw it along that seam that we drew for the hips. And then there's another line running along the middle, which causes these kind of, I don't really know how else to describe them. I guess they're meant to be scales, but on the model they look more like feathers. But because we're only working small, I'm just going to kind of draw them like this and call it a day. There's no need to overdo those at this stage. And now for his legs are nice and simple. Come to the arms last because the arms are quite tricky. We'll do the legs now just so they're nice and done. So the legs, you don't have to really worry about anything on the legs till you get to about the knee. When you get to the knee, you can draw this kind of V shape like this, and you see how I've used the point of the V on the midpoint, this original line, this line, and this line that we drew for the leg. We've drawn this point of the V there, that's the very front of his leg, that's where his knee is, that's where your knee would be if you were to look at your knee right now. And then on the outside of each leg we've got these kind of sticky up bits for the boots, I guess. You can just kind of add those in as if you want to. I mean, the beauty of drawing kind of bobblehead anatomy characters like this is that you can add and take away whatever details you like. You can definitely overdo it, but it's actually surprisingly difficult to underdo it. It just simplifies things really nicely. Before we forget, we're just going to add a little V here for the neck, because I realised his head wasn't actually attached to his his body until we did that. And then to finish off, we can just kind of curve off the feet there, and there we go. So the legs are nice and simple, nice and done there. So now we'll move on to the arms. Now I do want to give him a bit of muscle for his arms, because otherwise he's going to look a little bit too weedy, and who knows how he's going to handle that trident of his. So for the shoulders, I like to draw a little kind of semicircle, attaching it to the torso like this. Not too big, but certainly not too small. Then I think, surprisingly, it's actually easier to skip the bicep entirely for now and jump straight into drawing the forearm, which is this part of the arm. So, especially on this arm. So we can start with the wrist, which is here, where the hand attaches to the body, and you just start thin, then you go out like this. So you draw like a cone, okay? It's like a cone. Try and picture like a 3D cone, like an ice cream cone. And he also has this really cool kind of shape on his arm guards, which is, it's kind of like fish fins, like this. So you draw these, again, more kind of U shapes. What is it with fish and U shapes? And then these lines kind of carry on down to the wrist and get kind of cut off there. So again, we need to draw the forearm for this one, so we start thin, we draw this kind of cone shape. Okay, so thin and then thick, right where the elbow is going to be, to really kind of exaggerate how much muscle's in those arms. And now, with that there and that there, we can draw the bicep in. Now, I like to kind of cheat here and just start drawing two circles. So one circle like this, and again we're overlapping, but that's completely fine. And then another curve underneath, and we end up with, if I colour this in, just don't do this, but I'm just colouring it in to show you, that's the bicep. And this is the tricep. That's what they're called. The tricep kind of sits underneath the bicep, and yeah, that's why we draw two circles like that. So again, we'll draw a bicep here, big strong bicep, and then a tricep behind it. Okay, it's only cartoony anatomy, it isn't perfect. Don't go drawing realistic people like this, but it definitely works in cartoons, so you can do that kind of double circle shape for cartoons, and it's pretty much always going to look pretty good. So we need to add this thing on this arm, so we will do it here. Now it's on the other side of the arm, so I'm only going to draw a couple of those because they're actually kind of obscured. It's resting on the top of his forearm, whereas this is kind of the underbelly of his forearm, so to speak. So we can just kind of, I think there's a small swooping pattern going across this as well, but it's not as exaggerated or sticking out as that one is. And now for the trident. Now we've got the arm in place, we've got the hand in place. We haven't drawn the hands, but don't worry, we'll come to those last. It's important that we do the hands last, because if your character's holding something, you want to draw the object that they're holding, this thing, before you draw the hands, because you need to position the fingers around the object. You need to naturally wrap them around the object. So, good place to start is choose the length of our object. Well, I want it to be resting on the floor, so it needs to be level with this foot here. So I'm going to mark that as where it's sitting on the floor. And I want the object to be about this long. Okay, so it's going to be pretty long, but it's a trident, it's a very long weapon. So you can use a ruler to do this if you're using like a pencil or paper. I'm going to use software because software is the future. So all I have to do is hold shift and I can kind of draw a straight line just with one click like this. So I'm just going to drag it down to here and boom, presto, I have a perfectly straight line. Now that's just a guideline. It's just to kind of tell me, okay, this is how long I want my trident to be. That's not going to be in the final image. But what we do now is we draw the parts of the trident on this that we want. So I want the forks of the trident to be kind of this shape, like this. Okay, obviously this is not final, I'm just planning out the shape of the trident, and there's a kind of like a horizontal line sitting underneath where he holds the trident right there. And at the very bottom of the trident, let's not forget there's what looks like an arrowhead. It's kind of sitting there, so we'll draw that too, or a kite shield, looks kind of like a kite shield. So we'll draw that in as well. And now we can start kind of adding in the actual details of this. So I'm going to work from the bottom up. So quite simply, this just has another curve like this. If you look at the Fortnite model, it just has this kind of like curve. There we go. I guess it looks a little bit like an anchor. Maybe that's the idea. And now I'm going to thicken out this middle, because this is just a guideline. So I'm going to thicken this out by drawing a line either side of it, like that. And I'm going to thicken this out by doing the same, just drawing a little bit of a line either side of it, just sketching in lightly. It's going to look a little bit messy, but hey, that's drawing for you. We end up with lots of overlapping lines, lots of guidelines that we don't need anymore, but it's just there to help you build up the image and help you to plan ahead, because I think planning ahead is pretty important with drawing. It's not completely essential, but I find it makes life a lot easier in getting things right. So in terms of drawing the actual forks of the trident, honestly, it's more of the same. We're going to follow the shape around, and when I get to here, there's actually a point that sticks out like that. Just a little one, and it gets a little bit wiggly towards the end where it comes out and finishes in a spike like this. And then I'm just going to follow the shape back towards the middle. And in what is becoming kind of the catchphrase of this channel, whenever we reach something symmetrical, we're going to do it on the other side. So another little spike there. We'll go up here, give it a bit of a flick out for that spike, remember? And then bring this down towards the middle. And now all we have left is this final, I think it's called a twine. I'll have to look that up. But the middle kind of part of the fork. There we go. Up there. It's kind of spearhead shape at the end. And thicken it out as we come towards the bottom. And there we go. Now there is something to take note of whenever we're drawing rigid objects like this, something that's not floppy like a human body, but something that is cast iron or something that's just rock solid. Try and get it as even as you can, try not to make it look too bendy. So we can see mine, if you were to measure the distance between here and here, and here and here, this one is shorter. So that means I need to get my eraser, and I need to just tickle this back a little bit until it's pretty even. And often we don't notice those things until we're inking it anyway, but so long as you notice it before you go over it with something like a Sharpie, that's completely fine. So, last thing we have to worry about here, we have a couple of things on the hips here, just a couple of kind of guards, very, very basic details, and just some lines going up along that, bit of texture. And now the dreaded hands. So this hand, we'll do this one as a warm-up first. This hand is pretty much done. We've got the kind of shape of the actual hand itself like this, and we've got some fingers that we need to curve behind the hand. So I'm going to actually erase that and make it a bit more obvious what we need to do. So here, we just had this kind of lump here before, right? Well, what we need to do is we can just kind of turn that into a curled finger by adding, if I get really, really close here, this little curve here in the middle. So this looks like a curved finger now. If I actually get rid of this line here, it might be a bit more obvious. There we go. And then if you want the edge of another finger there. So if I zoom back out again. There we go. So I'm going to add a little bit of a, well, I say a little bit of a finger here. I'm going to add all the fingers. I'm going to start with a thumb though. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to draw a line that curves right across that central line, and then a bump here for the palm. So we end up, let me do a bigger version of that. This is the thumb, and then there's a line here, that's the palm. That's part of the palm. This is the thumb, if I draw a dotted line, that's the thumb, and that's the palm. That's all I've drawn there. So that sits over the weapon. So I'm actually going to zoom in now. So imagine it without that. That thumb is resting on top of the weapon like that. So that's the hard part done, because the other fingers, you can just draw them wrapping over it. If I draw the rest of the actual weapon here along this line, we can draw 3 fingers. 1, 2, and 3. And if I just erase that to make it more obvious, they're kind of clasping around the handle of the trident, and immediately we've got this great looking hand holding an object. I have actually done a tutorial all about that as well, which I will link right here for you if you need any extra help learning to draw that. But I mean, that was a really quick kind of crash course for you anyway, in how to draw things, holding things. So that's basically it for this drawing. I'm going to get this all polished off. You should do the same with whatever you're working with. Don't know if you're using a pen or a software, whatever you're using, and get that all polished off and coloured in if you want. I'm going to go and do that myself, so I'll catch you in just a moment. Nothing fishy about this one. I've got to say, the newer version of Aquaman these days looks a lot better than his feeble blonde version 1.0 from back in the day. Yeah, the less said about that one, maybe the better. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know what you would like me to draw in the comments below. In the next video, join the Discord to share your artwork in the community, and hit the like button and subscribe button to help the channel. Thanks, and until next time.